2 laps to go at Texas Motor Speedway. Kyle Busch turns hard right. John Hunter Nemechek goes directly into the outside wall. Race over. And right now, NASCAR is deciding whether to suspend a 2-time champion who is already drowning at 26th in the standings in a contract year with 0 wins in 103 races. The question sitting on NASCAR's desk is not complicated: is Kyle Busch about to lose a race he cannot afford to miss? Before getting to the wreck itself, you have to understand exactly how the day was unfolding for Kyle Busch, because the context makes what happened even harder to process. Busch had qualified 6th, his best qualifying effort of the entire 2026 season. He ran consistently inside the top 10 through both stages, earning valuable stage points along the way. This was also Andy Street's very first race as crew chief on the number 8 Chevrolet, a man stepping into a new role on a team that has been desperately searching for its footing after a brutal start to the season. Everything was pointing toward a solid, confidence-building finish. That is what this team needed. That is what Kyle Busch needed. A clean race, a strong result, and a reason to believe the season could still be salvaged. Then a late caution for a Corey Heim incident scrambled pit strategy entirely. Busch pitted for fresh tires and came out buried in traffic. When the final restart went green, he could not move forward through the field. The stage was set. A driver who was having the best race of his 2026 season was suddenly stuck in the pack with the clock running out, and the decisions he made in the next 15 seconds would define the entire weekend, and possibly much more than that. Here is exactly what happened, broken down in sequence. With 3 laps remaining, Nemechek passed Busch as the field crossed the start-finish line. Busch got back underneath Nemechek through turns 1 and 2 on the very next lap, and the two ran side by side on the backstretch, fighting for 12th place. Contact was made, Busch's car tagged the outside wall and took some damage. That initial contact is debatable. Hard racing. It happens at every track, every week, and in most situations it gets filed under racing incident and everyone moves on. What happened next is not debatable. Nemechek worked his way around Busch entering turn 3. Busch turned hard right and drove directly into the door of the number 42 Toyota. Nemechek was sent hard into the outside barrier, significant right side damage, race over with 1 lap left. The hit was not subtle. It was not ambiguous. The cameras caught it from multiple angles, and every single replay made it clearer, not less clear. The broadcast reacted immediately. Kevin Harvick said live on Fox, he did not know what happened earlier, but everything he just saw looked like Kyle turned down on the front of the 42 and then wrecked him. Clint Bowyer noted that Busch had run in the top 10 all day and now ended up 20th. The camera angles were bad from every direction, and they got worse with every single replay, which, in a situation like this, only makes NASCAR's job harder when it comes to rendering a decision. To understand why this incident carries the weight that it does, you have to understand the relationship between these two drivers, because this is not two strangers making contact on a racetrack. John Hunter Nemechek drove for Kyle Busch Motorsports in the Craftsman Truck Series for 2 full seasons, 2021 and 2022. He won 7 races under Kyle Busch's ownership during that time. These men know each other. They have worked together. Nemechek built a significant portion of his professional reputation inside an organization that Kyle Busch ran and controlled. Now Nemechek is at Legacy Motor Club, and by all accounts he was having one of his best Cup Series races of the 2026 season before the wreck ended his day. The emotional dimension of that is not insignificant. This was not a random contact between two competitors who have no shared history. Nemechek knows how Busch operates. Busch knows who Nemechek is and what he has accomplished. That familiarity makes the deliberate nature of the move land completely differently than a standard on-track incident between strangers. This was a former boss wrecking a former employee with 1 lap to go, and everyone watching understood exactly what they were seeing. Neither driver spoke to the media in person after the race. Both went directly to social media, and what they posted told 2 completely opposite stories about what happened and what comes next. Nemechek's post was 3 sentences. Blunt. Unambiguous. Source: John Hunter Nemechek, social media post, post-race Texas 2026, not freaking clear. Great day going. Just got wrecked. What an ass. He attached a replay video. There was no diplomatic softening, no attempt to frame it as a racing incident, no language designed to protect anyone's feelings. Pure, unfiltered fury from a driver who felt wronged on national television. The post told you everything about where Nemechek's head was at. This is not something he intends to let go quietly. Busch's response took a different approach but landed just as hard. He shared SMT tracking data from the incident, claimed he did not start the sequence of events, and said that Nemechek apparently does not know where the right side of his car is relative to the outside wall. He said there was 2 feet of space outside of Nemechek. And then he ended with the line that detonated across NASCAR social media: "Always know who you are racing beside." That is not an apology. That is not a peace offering. That is not a driver trying to de-escalate a situation. That one sentence is a warning, and it tells you everything about Kyle Busch's current state of mind in this 2026 season: a driver who is frustrated, who is running out of time, and who is not interested in backing down even when the evidence on the broadcast was working against him. Now comes the question that NASCAR has to answer, and the precedent for how they answer it is already established. In 2022, Bubba Wallace was suspended 1 race for intentionally wrecking Kyle Larson at Las Vegas, a 1.5-mile track. In 2023, Chase Elliott was suspended 1 race for intentionally wrecking Denny Hamlin at Martinsville, retaliation for an earlier on-track incident. Both suspensions came without warnings, without second chances, and without extended deliberation. NASCAR saw what they needed to see and acted accordingly. Now apply that same template to what happened at Texas Motor Speedway. It is a 1.5-mile track. A driver clearly turned into another car on purpose. The move came in direct retaliation following earlier contact in the same sequence. It happened on national television in front of a full race crowd. And critically, NASCAR officials photographed the right front fender of Busch's car after the race. Officials do not do that unless they are actively considering a penalty. That is not standard post-race documentation. That is evidence collection. NASCAR's announcement on any potential penalty was expected Tuesday or Wednesday following the race. If they follow their own precedent, and they have done so consistently across multiple seasons, the math points directly toward a 1-race suspension. This is not speculation. This is a legitimate question sitting on NASCAR's desk, backed by 3 years of established enforcement standards. A suspension hurts any driver. For Kyle Busch in 2026, it could be the thing that ends any realistic hope of salvaging the season entirely. He entered the Texas weekend 26th in the Cup Series standings and dropped a position after the race. He has gone 103 races without a win at Richard Childress Racing, and that number is not background noise, it is the defining narrative of his entire tenure at that organization. Every race matters. Every point matters. Every finish matters. Not just for championship positioning, but because this is a contract year, and every result he puts on the board, or fails to put on the board, is being evaluated by team owners and sponsors who are deciding where their money goes next season. Andy Street's debut as crew chief ended with his driver facing a potential suspension. That is not the way any new working relationship is supposed to begin, and it puts Street in an impossible position as he tries to establish himself in a new role with a team that is already under pressure. Street's post-race media comments were carefully neutral, a man processing what he has walked into on the very first day of his new job. Watkins Glen is the following weekend. Missing that race would cost Busch points he absolutely cannot give back at this stage of the season. The road course at Watkins Glen is the kind of track where a strong run is achievable for a driver of Busch's caliber, and losing it to a suspension would be a compounding disaster on top of an already disastrous afternoon. Busch was having the best race of his 2026 season and he threw it away in 15 seconds over a battle for 12th place. That is the full weight of what happened at Texas. Texas was not finished handing out chaos after the Busch and Nemechek situation. Ryan Preece went on the radio and unloaded on Ty Gibbs with language that cannot be repeated on this channel. Later in the race, Preece appeared to get into the back of Gibbs and spin him in turn 3. Shane Van Gisbergen, watching from his car, said out loud, "He just committed a murder." Gibbs was done. Preece finished 14th. Texas Motor Speedway on this particular afternoon was not a race, it was a rolling incident report from the first green flag to the last caution, with multiple storylines exploding simultaneously across the field. Here is where everything stands. Kyle Busch, 103 races without a win, 26th in the standings, in a contract year, with a brand new crew chief on his very first day, deliberately wrecked a former employee with 1 lap remaining at Texas Motor Speedway, on national television, and was called out for it live in the broadcast booth by 2 former champions. NASCAR photographed his car. The precedent for what comes next is clear, consistent, and has been applied twice in the last 3 years under nearly identical circumstances. With one turn of the steering wheel, Kyle Busch may have just made the argument against himself better than any critic ever could. If you are a real NASCAR fan who watches every single week and wants breakdowns like this one every time something big happens in the sport, hit that like button right now and subscribe to NASCAR Race News. Every story, every controversy, every penalty decision covered as it happens. Do not miss it.